All right, so here we are. This is just, we're already at the middle of January. How did that happen? I feel like it was just Christmas. I got a Christmas present this morning. Thank you, by the way. So, and we are kicking off our program, walking the path of your spirit, walking the path of the spiritual life. We're doing what a lot of the religious science centers do in January, which is going back to basics, we call it, going back to the basics. And what that means is that we're focusing on the first 4 chapters of the science of mind and looking at that foundation of our belief so that we can start the year from that, right? Sometimes it's good to go back to the beginning, to go back to the basics and say, okay, let's just start again. Let's just start again. Because by December, things get a little mucked up, right? They get a little complicated. Life gets a little whatever. And so it's nice to have this time to be able to say, let's just focus on the foundation of what we're doing here in this thing called life and get set the road for the year. So the way I'm picturing it is that we're going on a great adventure this year, our spiritual adventure together, and we are setting it up so that you can do this with a lot of support. So we're going to start at the end of the month, the last week of the month. We are going to start our Sacred Circle program. And so we've rolled those out, all the Sacred Circle signups are out. And so what that's going to entail is that there's 4 weeks that you'll come together once a week for 4 weeks with this group and talk about this program and setting our intentions and getting the foundation set. And then we're going to come back once a month for the rest of the year with that same circle for support and to talk about what the theme is for each month. So I'm really excited about it. Our practitioners are really excited about it, and our intention is that everybody who considers themselves part of this church gets in a circle so that you are engaged and participating in the program. And so here we are on the second Sunday of the month, and we're starting by talking about what it means to walk the path of the spiritual life. And so this is correlating a little bit with the chapter, What It Does, in terms of those first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind. And so what does God do? What does God do? Like, you know, that infinite, all-powerful, all-knowing, everywhere present essence of God, what does it actually do? Does it sit around on the beach because it has everything it needs? You know? It does, actually. It does. But what I know about God is that it creates. God, the creator of all things, it creates. And it doesn't stop. So as many of you know, I'm obsessed with Hamilton. I am. You know, I am. I've been talking about it forever. Yeah, work. And so what does God do? It works, right? It works. All it does is work, and it's non-stop. So anybody who's been listening to Hamilton is going to hear a lot of the little phrases in this talk because it's in my head. Because Hamilton reminds me of God. Because Hamilton was known as this man who, I can't believe I'm going on a tangent in the beginning of my talk. I'm in big trouble today. But Hamilton was this workaholic who just worked and created all of this new stuff. He's really amazing. But that's what God is. God is constantly working and creating more of itself through its creation. God is bringing more of its essence and its presence. And as we talked about last week, is that it needs to do this because it is all things. Spirit is all things. And it can only know itself through its creation. If it sits there in its unformed substance, all it knows is it's the totality of all being. But what does that actually mean? Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind says this, that we are surrounded by an infinite possibility. It is goodness, life, law, and reason. In expressing itself through us, it becomes more fully conscious of its own being. Therefore, it wishes to express through us. God is the divine architect of this life through us, the creator, and all it does is create. And so it creates through its creation. And we learned last week that the omniscient, omnipresent, what's the third one? Omnipotent, that's the power, is eternal. And it's all things. And it can't understand itself unless it is in context. So God is all light, but it can't understand itself as light unless it's got an experience of the darkness, right? If you think of, if we're all little candles glowing together, we won't know any light other than that we're an individual light unless we move into a place where there's darkness. God is all love, so it can't know itself as parental love, or romantic love, or passionate love. It can't know itself as that unless it moves into its creation. And it's really important that we understand that. Do you get that? I know I'm kind of hammering that really heavy. But we need to understand that because that's where our gift is. That's where our individual gift is. Because God has to create through us, it means that we are co-creating with it. It means that we have an opportunity to bring forward our own individual desires, our own individual expression, and we get to participate in this dance. And I'm going to invoke my other favorite gospel, the gospel of dirty dancing. Right? This is my dance space. And this is your dance space. No floppy arms, and you stay in your space, I stay in mine, we're going to do fine. And that's what I think of when I think of us co-creating with God, because the divine creation, we have to hold our own. We have to know what steps are coming. We have to be able to hold our own space and participate in that spin. And when we do that, when we can give into that, then it's fun, right? Spinning around the dance floor is a great fun thing. Just imagine being dipped by God. How cool is that? You know, that's our partner. It's our partner. God is there for us and through us. So God created the world and this place of seeming individuality so it can experience its magnificence. And here we are in January, and I have a couple of rituals that I do every January, and I was going to share with you. And one of them is this. I participate in my Pilates Studio's New Year's Challenge. So my Pilates studio, normally I do 10 Pilates sessions a month, and now it's unlimited. So this month I'm doing 20. I've got 5 down, 15 more to go in the next 3 weeks. And so that's what I do. January, I hit my reset button so I can eat whatever I want during Christmas because I know I'm going to do 20 Pilates sessions in January. And then the second thing I do is I go through my cupboard and I clean out all the canned goods that are expired. All right, so I clean those out. I did that this week too. I actually found something from 2013, which is weird because I did it last January and I don't know where that can came from, but somehow it was. So this week I was like throwing out my can. And then the third thing is, for my mind, I do 2 things. I go back and study the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind to do my reset button, but I also reread this thing called You. I reread this book, this thing called You, and this is our book of the month, and it has, it's the writing from Ernest Holmes that I encourage anyone who's new to read. Right? Anybody agree with me? Who's read this? Yes. Okay. So this is the one. So some people say, I'm so excited about this philosophy, and I can't wait to get into class, and I'm going to read the Science of Mind, and I say, no! Don't read the Science of Mind until you're in class. Read this. Because what this does is it speaks to us on that deep inspirational level. It's speaking spirit to spirit. It doesn't have to go through my brain to try and understand subjective, objective, law, love, blah, whatever. I don't know what that means. I actually do know what that means. But you know, when you're new, or when you just want to hit the refresh button, you want your spirit to be inspired. And this book does it. And that's why we are basing our readings this month. We are focusing on this, and I encourage you, if you're wanting to step back in to this philosophy and do that reset, to start with that book. Because it so beautifully expresses what we are, who we are, and why we are. And that whole thing is to walk this spiritual adventure. That we are here to walk this path of life that is individually created for us. I remember when I was a child, there was a period of time where they had all of those Choose Your Own Adventure books. Do you remember that? Like, if you want to do this, go to page 47. If you want to do this, go to page 56, you know? And so you could read this little novel like 6 or 7 different ways that you could make different choices. Well, that's what your life is. It's a Choose Your Own Adventure book. Your life, this adventure, is a choose your own adventure. And that it's by leaning in and participating in this experience that we can start to shape the path of our lives. And it's an important point because I think so many of us have been brought up with if we're only lucky, then maybe we'll have an easy path of life. Oh, poor unfortunate Gladys. You know, she's had a rough time of it. She's unlucky. But over here, we could hope to have it be good, right? And so many of us have been brought up with this idea that there's something outside that we have to hope is going to be good to us, or hope if we're good enough that maybe it'll be all right. And that's not the game we're playing. We're playing a different game. We're on a different adventure. This is a lean in, set your intention, know the truth, and allow the greatest to come forward path. And at any one moment, we get to choose and take a different direction. And the only way we get to do that is by being conscious of what's going on in our own inner knowing. By starting to get to know who we are. By starting to realize the value that we have in who we are. And that we're connected in this larger matrix of being. That is when the fun starts. Because we start to be able to consciously choose and direct our experiences. Now this week you had an assignment. Anyone who was here last week had an assignment. And that was to find the place where you feel the divine. I wanted you to go out and either put your feet in the sand, look at a mountain, you know, I don't know what it is for you. Hug a tree, it could be whatever, you know. Look at a baby's eyes, do whatever it is for you to have that experience of knowing that there's something greater in this world. And that is the most important thing for us to start each day with. So that everything that we experience, everything that we know, comes from that divine connection. Because that place where the human and the divine meet, that's our place of power. When we can acknowledge that there's this divine presence that's part of us, that is us, that's greater than we can know, and it connects with us right at that center place, when we can lean into that, that's when this starts to get fun, because we start to be empowered in knowing that we are participating and we can call forward that which we are desiring. And we can let go of that which we no longer want to experience. I think about, first. So, from this thing called You, Ernest Holmes says this. I'm going to do it without my glasses. He says this, and I can read it. Place a mirror in front of you. Hold before it what you call a small object, such as a pencil, and you will see that the reflection is neither larger nor smaller than its image. Now remove the pencil and place a book in front of the mirror. Instantly, the mirror reflects the larger object. Suppose you had a mirror large enough for you to place a mountain in front of it. Would not the mirror as easily reflect that image of the mountain? It would not be hard. It would not be easy. It would not be large. It would not be small. It would merely be a reflection. Life is a mirror, reflecting your images of thought. If you see confusion in this mirror, don't blame the law of reflection. Don't even bother to blame yourself, but be willing to acknowledge that this confusion must be a reflection of your own consciousness. I love that. Because he's saying that we can't, when something is happening in our life, we can't blame the reflection. We can't blame the incident. We can't blame the experience. And he's also saying we can't even blame ourselves. Now we know that we're the ones who create it. We co-create with the divine. Somehow we welcome it in. We allow it in. And I know that's a really big topic. I could do a whole month on that. But that's not helpful. When we're wanting to change something, when we're wanting to expand or deepen or create something different in our world, not only do we have to take responsibility for it, but we need to let go of the blame. We need to let go of blaming ourselves. Oh, I'm so dumb, look what I did again. I got myself into this mess. Have you ever said that? You know, oh, here we go. What did I do this time? You know? It doesn't help. It's a downward spiral. That's the downward spiral. When we start to get into blame, when we start getting into that unworthiness, that belief. So what, you know, they say you are what you eat, right? That's a common phrase. You are what you eat. I'm a whole lot of kale and carrots right now, but I don't know what that means. And in New Thought, we say you are what you think, right? That's not even totally true either. You are what you are. The experience of your life is a reflection of who you are. So that's the totality of the picture, which is not only your thoughts and your beliefs, but everything. Your actions, your experience, everything that we've experienced in this life, and some could make an argument for before this life, but again, I'm not going to go there. But we are the total composite, the sum total of who we are moves into this experience of life, and our life experience is a reflection back of that. So, what that means is this. If you're seeing something in your world that you're not liking, if there's something that you want to change, to shift, to create differently, we need to be willing to acknowledge that in some way this is part of my consciousness, and be willing to accept the next evolution of thought. It's that simple. If we can move out of the blame, we can move out of the shame, we can move out of the self-negation into a place of saying, okay, I don't like this, I'm going to change it, right? If we have a different, I'm going to make a different choice. And instead of, complaining about how we got there, stepping forward from a place of, okay, well, let's just chalk it up to experience, right? I didn't like this. I don't really want to do this again. So how can I move forward differently? And it's that willingness. It's that willingness. It's that willingness that makes a difference for us. It's a willingness to learn, to grow. It's a willingness to see things differently. It's a willingness to let go of those truths that we have held on to for our whole life because that has kept us safe, or because that has kept us in a place of comfort. We need to let go of that to allow our souls that evolution. That adventure is not I call it an adventure because this is not some small little, sweet little experience. Life is big. Life is exciting. Life pushes us to the edge. Life makes us awaken to the possibilities. And life is not going to let you live small. We might as well just let that go. So if you want a peaceful little small life, sorry, you're not in for it this time. And if you want to hold on to that, if you're going to hold on so tightly to that, life is going to pick you up by the scruff of the neck and drop you in the middle of the adventure. Has anyone ever experienced that? Yeah, see? I told you. It's not, life will not be, not live. Our job is to clear the confusion, to clear that distortion in the reflection, to realize that we are active living participants in this life, that it's not like we're just floating on the ocean in a little boat without a rudder, hoping that the waves take us where we want to go. No, we are spinning, think of that Dirty Dancing thing, we're spinning with God in the middle of this dance floor. And as we allow ourselves to do that, it's so fun and so exhilarating and so joyful. That's life. That's the picture of life. One of the things that I personally use is the image of each of us as a channel of the divine. That we are co-creators, but we're also channels. So, like we're a pathway for spirit to be expressed in this world. So, each of us is a channel of love. Each of us is a channel of peace. Each of us is a channel of harmony. And it's how we live and move and navigate through our lives that we bring these qualities into the world, right? So that's why I'm like, okay, we are ready to work. What's going on in this world right now? We could use some more channels of the divine, right? So I want you to think, so that works for me. So how I'm using it today is this. I want you to think of the shower drain. In a house, you could use my house. I used to have really long hair, and I would shower in there. And the drain would get clogged. And what I used to call is gunked. It used to get gunked up. Now my beloved husband would mostly clean the drain out, but there were a few times when I would go in there and I would do it because I felt really guilty because it used to be my hair. It's not anymore, but it used to be. And so, think about that. So what happens? What happens when that channel gets gunked up is that the water backs up, right? And soon you're standing in your own dirty water. That's gross in your shower. I hate that, And so I would do that for a couple of days, and that's when I would actually get down and clean it. And that stuff is gross. Hair on our heads is wonderful. In the drain, something happens to it. It's just really disgusting. really gross, right? All right, so, are you with me? You with me? Okay, all right. So, our fears, our angers, our resentments, our old wounds, that's all the hair in the room. That's what goes up our channel. And when we are so attached to the old stories, when we're so attached to our hurts, when we're so attached to being right, and they were wrong, and I was right. Think I ever get like that? Just a little. I pray a lot about it. But what that does is it gums up our channels of being a divine emanation, a transparency for God. If I want to be the channel of divine love in this life, can I walk around with these resentments? No, that's not pure love coming forward. It's gunked up. And so our goal is to clear the gunk. I wanted to call the program that, Clearing the Gunk. But I didn't think that that was the right one to use. Again, Ernest Holmes says this. Should all the wisdom of the universe be poured over us, we should yet receive only that which we all are ready to understand. That's why some draw one type of knowledge and some another, and all from the same source, the source of all knowledge, God. The scientist discovers the principles of his science. The artist embodies the spirit of his art. The saint draws Christ into his being. All because they have courted the particular presence of some definite concept. So God comes to us in our own individual way. God speaks to us in the way that it inspires and alights the heart. That individual gift that you are. Each of us is different, like snowflakes, right? Everything. And we're all a little bit different. Each snowflake is a little bit different. Each person is a little bit different. Each blade of grass is different. Each star is different. Everything is a little bit different because each of us is our own individual expression, and life needs each of us. Life needs us to be our own individual expression. And so when we try to be something that we're not, when we try to put our that facade forward and we show up in our pretending mode, we're not supporting or allowing life to have its fullest expression. The goal is for us to know ourselves so well, to be so comfortable with who we are, that any idea of unworthiness, any idea that we're not needed, any of those concepts simply can't stand up to the truth of knowing how precious you are to the divine life. Babies don't come into this world thinking, God, I hope they love me. I hope I'm cute enough for them to love, right? There's no way that my puppy does not wake up every day saying, I hope she's gonna like me today. No, she just jumps on my lap and licks my face and then pees on my carpet. That's Daisy. Husband. No, the baby with the puppy. Sorry. I knew I should have done that. Sorry. Puppy training coming up in February. But why are we like that? We learn it. We learn and embody somebody else's idea of us in a way that isn't even true. And we start to learn that we're not worthy. And we start to have this idea that we're not cute enough to be loved, or that maybe we're not good enough. Somehow those beliefs, and those are the insidious ones because they're quiet. They're the quiet ones that kind of sit on the bottom of our consciousness, and they're operating all the time. And so when we move into a place of allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, or allowing ourselves to engage in life in a new way, that's when that belief strikes, and it comes up and says, no, you can't do that. You can't change your life. You're not capable. You're not worthy enough. And that's that false belief that tells its story in the back of our consciousness. My best wish is for each of us to tell that voice to shut up, and to get rid of it, to let it go. Because if we can just let go of that not enough thing, if we could let it go, then we can accept all of the divine blessings that are there for us. We can open to hearing that divine guidance, that voice, that infinite knowledge that's right where we are, that's supporting us and moving in the direction for our freedom. Our lives are meant to be magnificent expressions and for us to engage in them in a deep, deep way. And we can only do that when we are connected to the Spirit. And so we're called to live close to God. We're called to lean in and put Spirit first. And that's why we do that. We do that because when we do that, we realize what game we're playing. We realize how this life works. We realize who we truly are. And once you start to allow this navigation system to support you instead of Siri, if you can let your God navigation, GPS, God, your God service, to support you, then you can start to see that you are creating something new, that you are participating as you move in that direction, as you participate in the vision board workshop and you set that up, and then we go through the year and you start to see how these things are manifesting. Or if you write your intention letter and you put it in our box and we pray over it for the year and I send it back to you in December and you open that up and you say, holy cow, I got everything on this in February. That program was so good, I manifested everything in February. We should start again in March. That's what I want to hear. But because I know that that's how it works, and I know that that's what's happening when we move forward and embrace our individual gift that we are. Ernest Holmes also says this, and this one is sticking with me. He says this: a bucket that is turned upside down, even in a cloudburst, will not be filled. A bucket turned upside down in a cloudburst will not be filled. The divine life wants to give itself to you. Fill your bucket to overflowing. But if we turn it upside down, if we think, I'm doing this on my own, it's just me, I got to pull myself up by my bootstraps, or we believe in our limitations, or we believe that we're alone in this, if we participate in any of those thoughts, your bucket's upside down. When we turn it over and we open to that divine guidance, to that presence and that love, then we are filled to overflowing, and our life becomes that divine adventure. And so that's what we're here to do this month, this year, always. But I know for each and every one of us that as we walk the spiritual adventure together this year, that great possibilities and potential opens up for us. There's a divine vision that's making itself, correlating itself within you. It's supporting you in knowing some of those divine desires that you may not have ever let yourself think about to come forward. We are ready for a new adventure. Are you ready for a new adventure? God knows I am ready for a new adventure. Let's do something fun this year. And I know that the way that we're going to be able to do that is when we lean into God. So get into class, get into a sacred circle, read a book, pray, get a prayer at the end of service. Let's get ourselves together and allow this divine adventure to flow forth, because it's time, and the time is now. And so it is.